All right, let's get ready to work on our generic facial proportions and draw a picture that will guide you with your facial proportions. So first, proportions are just size relationships. So let's go ahead and write that down. Proportion is size relationships. Okay. So that means that for our faces, when you're drawing a face, you figure out how big to make each part of the face based on the other parts of the face. So if we look at this example picture from one of my previous students, you can see that when we're drawing her face, we know how wide to make her face based on the wideness of her own eyes, and where on the face her mouth should go based on where on the face her nose should go. That's part of our proportional relationships, our size relationships. That's how we draw people, and we'll be talking about this while we do this drawing, and then you'll be labeling this drawing when you take your notes. So first thing, when I start to draw a face, I start by drawing a circle. And it's a big, loose, light circle. I will be drawing it a little bit darker than I normally do because I need you to be able to see it, but you should draw it very lightly right on your paper. It should be about this big. So about the size of your fist. If your fist is about my hand size, if you have larger hands, make it a little bit smaller. But my lovely students, we're going to try to fill up this with our proportional drawing. So I start with that. Now this is a representative of the back of your head, the round part of the top of your skull. And then after I draw this, I make what I call a placeholder chin. So I start with the left side and I draw a little placeholder chin, and then I move over to the right side and I just make a basic face shape, right? Just like this. This circle helps to keep the top round, and then I can add on the face on top of that. After I do that, then we need to start dividing up this space in order to create a face. So first, we're going to talk about how your face is symmetrical, which means the left side of your face and the right side of your face are exactly or very close to exactly the same. Most people, it's a little bit off. That's really, really normal. But we do try to line things up with what I call the line of symmetry. And it's a line that goes straight down your face, just like this, just to make sure that this side is about the same as this side, right? So let's draw a little line down the front of this drawing and then label it line of symmetry. Okay, so this is your line of symmetry. Our next proportional relationship to keep in mind is that your eyes are about halfway down your face. I know that feels wrong, but let's look at my nice proportional former student and see that when I'm talking about halfway down her face, I'm talking about from all the way up here at the top where her hair is, all the way down here. About halfway is where her eyes are. So for our example drawing in here, we're going to draw another very light line about halfway down the face so that we know where to line up the eyes. Next, we're going to divide up the space down here for the other facial features. So you need to know that your nose is about a little bit less than half the remaining distance there, and some part of your mouth is going to land about halfway from here. Now we should have a drawing that looks a wee bit like 3CPO. Next, we can add in a little bit of a neck, and this is something that we can adjust later, but your neck is almost as wide as your head. And then we can add on some little shoulders, just like this. Again, these are all things that we'll adjust as we're looking at our drawing. Okay, next proportional relationship is the width of the eyes. A human face, in general, can be measured using its own eyes as a unit of measurement. So your face, most faces, are approximately 5 of their own eye widths wide. In order to divide up our face accurately, we can start by looking at this space and giving a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right of the line of symmetry, and then approximate or guess about that same amount over on the left side and about that same amount over on the right side. Please continue to adjust until you have exactly 5 mostly equal sections. Now we're going to put in some basic facial features, so we're going to add in just a little bit of the eyes, and we'll go into detail with how to do this more accurately later. But go ahead and we'll start with the left eye, and you can draw a light little half moon here, little kind of semicircle eye shape, and then go over and do your best to draw the same kind of semicircle eye shape over here on the right side, doing your best to match them up. Then on the bottom you will draw another line, and it will be still curved but a little bit less curved, and the same thing over here. Now students, if this was going to be a finished drawing, I would erase this line. I would erase this line. I would erase in here. I would erase all of these sidelines. But because this is an instructional tool, a little worksheet you make them for yourself, we're going to keep all of those lines in there so you remember where they're supposed to go. Okay, so now students, we have our eyes. There's about 1 eye width in between the 2 eyes. There's about 1 eye width here. There's about 1 eye width there. Your pupils and your irises. Your iris is the colored bit, the pupil is the black part in the center. Your irises usually will only show one part. All right, so when we're drawing eyes, you usually can't see the entire iris at the same time. If we look back at my former student, you can see how you can see her iris is cut off by her eyelid, and that is normal. So we will draw a perfect circle, or as close to a perfect circle as we are able to when you're drawing the iris. And we'll do the same over here, as close as we are able to a perfect circle to create the iris. And then your pupil is about 1/3 of the size of your iris. It is a black circle exactly in the center of the iris. So we have our little eye shapes. That's pretty great. Next, you will note that your nostrils, the outside of your nose, is about as wide as the distance between your eyes. Okay, so typically a nose will be about that wide. Now this varies greatly depending on, how big your nose is, but in general, a decent rule of thumb is that we can draw a little semicircle and a little semicircle just kind of over here, and then a little bit of the nostril down here, and a little bit of the septum, and a little bit of the nostril going down, and that will make a decent little generic nose, right, with some little flat nostrils, because typically we can't see a whole big circle nostril, but you can see just a little suggestion of where the hole is to go up. Your next proportional rule is related to the mouth and the pupils. When a person is staring straight on, the corners of their mouth will line up with their pupils. Again, this varies depending on how wide your mouth is and how wide set your eyes are and all of that, but a good little rule of thumb is that they will line up. When I draw mouths, I like to draw the center line first, and we'll talk about this and more about why that is when we start drawing mouths. But usually I'll draw some kind of a little curved line and then a little suggestion of an upper lip and a little suggestion of a lower lip. Like that. And again, we'll talk more later about how to make this look more realistic. Now, so we have our basic little face. Now it's time to adjust the facial shape. Like, I've made these lips a little large, so I know I need probably a bit more chin going on down here. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust the height of the chin and actually make it kind of chin shaped. So this person's chin is going to be a little straight like this. And then I'll have the sides go up, right? Because most people don't have actual oval shaped faces. They have chin and they have jaw. And so then I adjust it like this and add on the actual jaw shape. And I do this when I draw people as well. Like from a reference picture, when I'm looking at them, I give a basic face shape and then I go in and adjust it so that it looks more like the actual person. Now, I'm not drawing my poor former student over here, I'm just drawing my generic person. So I would do that. And again, we would end up erasing all of these little practice beginning lines, but for this practice, it's just fine. So I'm going to draw out my necklines. Those were still pretty good. And our little shoulder lines are pretty good. Again, your neck is still about the same size as your head. Another proportional relationship, we need our eyebrows in order to put it in. So when we're drawing our eyebrows, typically your eyebrows are going to line up with your carbuncle, this little goober catcher in the corner of your eye, and they will extend over past the outside of your eye. So we can start drawing them here and just making little hairs using a flicking motion similar to stipple, like when we were painting grass and making different textures like carpet. If your eyebrows are looking a little funky, you can always draw a little line like this to start with and then put the eyebrow on top of that, and that helps with the path of the hair across the face. Okay, just like that. Now, the next thing that we need to do, so your eyebrows tend to be about an eye height above the eye, and we'll talk about how that'll work, and we'll talk about your eyelids at a later time. So the next thing that you need to know is that your ears line up, the top of your ears lines up with your eyebrow, and the bottom of your ear lines up with the bottom of your nose, right? So let's go ahead and get that going on over here on the other side. The top of the ear lining up with the eyebrow, the bottom of the ear lining up with the bottom of the nose. Now this again varies from person to person. Sometimes they're a little lower, a little higher, they're tilted. All of those things are normal, but a good rule of thumb is this is about how big they are. So we can just draw a nice little generic ear shape, right, attached to this person's head. And a little ear shape, trying for symmetry, but it's sticking out a little bit. That's okay. Over from the side, but lined up from eyebrow to nose. We will get all of these labeled when we are working on our notes, but for now this is what we have. The next thing that we can do, and I would like you to try to practice putting in your own type of hair on this drawing. So if you have like a shorter, more pronounced hairline, then you can add kind of a light little line like this to kind of show where it's going to go so that your path follows it. If you have longer hair, you can just kind of start to draw in the hair and give a hair path, right, like this. Again, we will talk more about drawing hair later, so if your hair looks like spaghetti or worms right now, it's okay, but it will come on the forehead and come up and around and go around like that. If you have the shorter hair, we tend to draw little hairs like this, kind of like what we were doing with the eyebrows, right? Or you can do a curly version of this if that's what you have, so try to do whatever it is that you have for your hair, and then try for some of your actual hair, right? Just kind of like this, and we're going to talk about how to do this. I have methods for drawing hair, but we're just going to give a little practice. His hair is just kind of going around like this, right? So there's something added in there that you know that this whole thing isn't reserved for forehead all the way up to here, that the hair is going to start, and that's how it will go together. So this is what your, something like this is what your generic facial proportions example should look like, and it will get more notes on it when we are taking notes. Thanks, y'all.